everybody. Welcome back to the A32 podcast. Today I'm with Jeff Coleman from Legacy Church, and he is the tech pastor. He gets to he gets to edit the videos and stuff so that people that go to our church can also see the sermons, can experience worship and stuff at home because COVID. And I just want to say thank you, right off the bat to let me, come into y'all's studio, experience this, because there's lights, there's a camera, there's action.
There we go.
And let's roll right into this because with you, being the tech pastor, your role kind of came up because of COVID, and with all of this COVID stuff, I know that there's a bunch of people feeling hopeless.
Yeah, definitely, and we hope that everything we can do here at the church to like a podcast we're doing called Furthermore with the pastors. That's a podcast after the service kind of thing. It helps to kind of feel like you're there with them, and that's kind of interesting. You said that too, because one of the big things we've heard about the Furthermore podcast is that it feels like they're sitting at the table with the pastors, and people have been craving. People, especially now during COVID, are craving this connection. They want people, and so hopelessness can definitely come out of that. It's driven by some things that that are going on right now, and amplified more. We're living in unprecedented times. You hear that all the time, but unprecedented.
Brent is fond of saying that I am done with unprecedented. I just want precedented times.
Exactly, precedented times. Well, it would be great to have that. I wonder what they look like. Because every year we hear that from somebody. This is unprecedented. This is unprecedented. And I think there is no such thing. I think it's just a word they made up. But the feeling of hopelessness is valid. A lot of people have that problem. And a lot of times, especially, it can be triggered by certain circumstances in your life, certain things, certain COVID things. And it takes a lot to cope with it. And so, that's the biggest thing going on right now in people's lives. How I personally overcome we can get to in a couple minutes. I have some ways that I really like to overcome adversity. But a lot of times the enemy likes to take situations like people are in right now at home and kind of feed on the fact that the lie that they're isolated and they're all by themselves when they're really not.
Right. That's part of the problem, because I know, like, even with me, like in school, like physics, earlier this semester I was struggling with that, and I felt so alone. I was like, I can't talk to my friends to try and figure stuff out, and so when you're all alone and stuff, it's worse. Like, any problem's exacerbated when you feel isolated.
Exactly, and so all the enemy needs, in my mind, from a spiritual perspective. I've been in ministry for a long time. Before I was a tech pastor, I was a youth pastor, youth pastoring, and did that for a long time. And I've seen many students deal with situations and stuff, and it takes its toll. But all it takes is one little inkling of that hopelessness for the enemy to kind of play on and kind of feed into the lie that you're isolated and you're by yourself. And when you see people do that, they often go that route. When you think you're isolated, you feel you're isolated, so you start to not only isolate others because you think that there's nothing else we can do. You isolate yourself.
Right now, you keep pushing people away because. And I remember when I was in middle school, 6th and 7th grade, I really ended up listening to the wrong voices. Listening like you say, planting the seed. With the devil, he can say something, but you have to listen, and it's really easy to listen to that, to fall into "you're worthless, no one loves you, how could anyone love you?" Mm-hmm. And
we exacerbate it.
Right.
We're the ones that the seed planted, and then sadly we can fall into it as humans because we're so, the way our world works and everything, we're so driven by the me thing, by ourselves, that we think, oh, poor pitiful me, and we fall into that category, and it just and we kind of water the seed and grow it and amplify it. I think in times like this, we don't realize that we forget that everybody's in this world is in this pandemic, and it's a shared experience. And
right, and we might not be, dealing with it or having the same experiences as the next person, but having similar experiences. Like, because one thing we can all complain about is COVID.
Yeah, we got a common thing going on right now, and that's the thing. That's the interesting part about it is that I feel in my heart that people sometimes when they go into situations they think nobody else has been through this but me. And we don't realize there are people who have been through that. And when they come to try to help us, we hear them. But then the part that I think that the enemy tries to play on is that one little degree that says, yeah, they've had this situation, but it's not the same situation that I have. The people are different, or there's a factor that's different. And it's not my exact, so they don't know exactly what I'm going through. And it sends you into a thought process of isolation and sends you into hopelessness where you feel like there's nothing that can help you. When we, in turn, we've taught this before, but we should realize that God gave us those people in our lives to help us cope with what's going on. Yes, it's not the exact situation, but it's a similar situation. It's in the same vein. And so we should be able to use that as a hope that there is a brighter future, right?
Right, and like we said, we talked about this a little bit before, but part of coping with hopelessness is understanding that God is in control. And, part of that, like with seeing other people have gone through similar things and how God has helped them through that, that can help give you hope. That's also part of the, breaking out of your isolation, connecting with others, and relationships are important because, the greatest commandments are love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Relationships are important.
Yeah.
And so, breaking out of your isolation, getting with people who have similar problems to you, who lean on God to get through it, seeing that it works.
Yeah.
Having that hope in God, and then that can help you even if it doesn't get better. That can help you glorify God even when you're going through the troubles.
Exactly. And the thing about us humans, though, we are stubborn creatures. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of things that God tries to do, and I think he has to kind of drag us kicking and screaming and get us to a point where we realize that we need him. Mm-hmm. And so the reason I say that is that, we sometimes, when we get these modes of hopelessness, we get this adversity in our lives, we think, well, we can fix it. Let me try to fix the problem. God, you've got too much going on. There's too much going on in the world right now. You don't worry about me. That's another problem. With that too, and I'll say that in a minute too. A lot of us have that,
or like feeling like you're not worth help. Like I remember like that. This is still a thing I struggle with the it's okay for me to help others, but not for others to help me.
Exactly.
That thing. So that's not a very good thought process.
And that'll get you into the fact of that means I'm out for myself, and that brings again isolation, which brings hopelessness. I think isolation and hopelessness are hand in hand. If you're, if you look at a guy just stranded on a deserted island, you see those pictures of all the time. You see like the mound and the one palm tree, and they're standing out there, and there's nothing left for them.
Maybe a volleyball.
Yeah, a volleyball. Yeah, maybe a volleyball. Maybe Wilson. But we feel that that's all we have. And then we and that again too is the other thing to add to it. That guy on that island, that's all his scope is right there. That's all he sees. He sees ocean for miles and miles, and he's isolated by himself and thinks that there's nothing gonna save me, nothing gonna be here for it, and I should not worry. That I should so. A lot of us feel like that, and the Bible says that no man is an island, no man is off by himself. That we're all shared experiences and together, and. And not that I'm saying it's bad that we feel that way. It's okay. What's my favorite line?
Right. So it's okay to not be okay. It's not okay to stay that way.
And if you're stuck on that island and you're not trying to build a raft or you're not trying to chop the tree down to turn into something, or you're not having any motivation, or using Wilson as a flotation device to make it back, or making a smoke signal, and you sit on that island all by yourself in that hopeless feeling, then God can't really, God can move in that, but He wants to know that but you think building a fire and all that, you trying to do it by yourself, but you've got to look at the fact that God may have given you those things to be able to do that.
Right, and the whole God won't forsake you, but you can leave God.
Yeah, there's always hope and help.
Huh?
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. I was thinking of praise, but I was thinking something else at the same time. I jumped in my thing.
Yeah,
sorry.
That was like, there's always hope in hell. It's like, I don't think so.
Hope and help.
Hope and help.
Yeah, and I'll explain that in
a
second. Sorry about that. I didn't say hope and hell. So, that's a whole other topic that we're not even going on because it's not even part of this podcast on that. So.
And now I'm very derailed.
So what I was getting at, though, on that is that if we were trying to do it, the guy on the island, let's just use him as an example with hopelessness, because I like that analogy. He's not jumping off trying to swim by himself because he knows he can't make it. But sometimes I think we try to do that, and if you ever seen Castaway, we swim out so far, where else, wait a minute, we got to go back to the island. We can't swim that far. But then again, like I said, there's a palm tree and all that on there, and those may be things that God put in our life that aren't there. But I don't know. This may be a stretch. You tell me if this is a stretch, and you may just have to cut me out on this one. But the things on the island are in the same shared experiences as you are. They're the same. They're all there by themselves. And maybe those tools that God has given you could be a person, could be something in your life, could be a situation that helps, that you can utilize in order to help you get off the island, in order to help you get through your hopelessness, to help you feel less isolated.
Your God-given gifts and stuff that you can use to overcome your situation or whatever.
Yeah. So that's the train I'm on, all aboard. So when we talk about overcoming adversity, overcoming hopelessness, you have to realize that there's hopelessness is only created by yourself in certain things, because Satan sends you down that route, and there's a way to get out of it. Now, again, there are some people who deal with that worse than others, chemically, medically.
Right, there are some people who do need medicine.
Yeah, and I'm not going to deny that.
But, our problems in life can come from places where it's like, where you try and self-medicate, where, you try and swim out by yourself, be it, YouTube, social media, drugs, porn, things that, things that make you feel better, but, aren't the way to be.
Exactly.
Things that make you feel better in the moment, and that's, God is not, just a cheap little, make you feel good in the moment.
Yeah.
God will make you feel good, consistently forever in the long run. You don't,
Well, and you can take it a step back with this island guy that I'm stuck on for some reason. But in order for him to get on the island, in order for him to be there, something had to happen. There had to be some kind of problem for him to get there, a situation for him to be there.
The plane crashed.
Yeah, like a plane crashed. But you don't automatically just wake up one day and you're a man stuck on an island. There's something that got you there. And so I think that's the part where we talk about hopelessness. In order to get to hopelessness, a situation has to get you there. You don't just wake up and man, I feel like being hopeless today.
Right. Sometimes it's a pandemic.
Yeah, a pandemic, or it's a plane crash. And so this guy's on the island from the plane crash, like in the movie, or there's a shipwreck, and so they're on this island by themselves. And I think that that's when it's the tipping point in our brains. When we get to a situation and hopelessness starts to creep in, it's either I can sit down and I can try to do it myself, which isn't going to work.
Right.
And we know that's not going to work. I can sit down and follow the lie that there is no hope. It's never going to happen again. I might as well just sit here and die. I might as well just not eat anything. Everything's done. Or that there's the hope of, man, maybe these 3 things on the island can get me off and signal a plane. Maybe God's going to help me get through it. Now, again, is it going to be easy? No.
Right.
You know, there's still going to be problems. I mean, let's say he burns the wood and nothing comes. He's still stuck on an island. You know, but maybe God sends a bird. There's a bird that comes by and is a huge hawk and picks him up. I'm just being crazy now. But, what is it, Gryffindor or what other things are that fly?
Griffins, yeah.
Yeah, that fly. So there's always a hope for him to get off the island and be okay. It's just, is he going to be able, that's the point, I guess, where I see us in hopelessness to overcome it. How do we cope with it? Are we going to be able to use what God has given, and how do we do that? What are those things?
And like we said earlier, though, and I think it bears repeating, the whole coping with hopelessness, knowing that God is in control, even though it might not get better. Even if he doesn't get off the island, you still know that if it's not hell, it's a blessing.
Exactly.
If it's because you only deserve hell, and I've talked with my dad extensively about this, not on the podcast, just in conversation.
Yeah.
If it's not hell, it's a blessing, and the fact that you're still alive means that you're going through this rough time. Even if you don't get off the island, God is still working in your life, and God is still in control because you have the fire. I don't think a griffin will come by, but maybe you find some bird that you can eat.
Exactly.
Something you can make an umbrella out of.
Exactly.
You can. The God is still working in your life.
And even if we don't make it off the island, even if the problem never resolves itself, we have to rest in the fact to know that, again, that there's a reason behind it, that God's doing it. Now, I think the problem is that if we resolve automatically in hopelessness that there's no hope at all, there's nothing else, we automatically fall to that lie, and we don't see that there are people in our lives that can help us through it, that there are other means like like the Bible and prayer, and especially when you talk about prayer, I say these prayers all the time in hopelessness in my life. I look at the promises of God more as prayers of guarantee. Not a guarantee of getting something in return. Not that I'm going to make it off the island, or that you have to get me off the island, that this has to happen. That I look at it as a prayer of faith, to know that God said, I'll never leave you or forsake you. Romans 8:28. Love to quote that one. Works all things out. God works all things out to those who love Him. And not from a prosperity point. Not because I want to prosper and make God a cash machine.
Right, we're not trying to preach like Joel Osteen or Keith Copeland over here.
Well, God's not a lottery. A lottery that I'm trying to put stuff in. He's not that kind of a God. He's a God that loves us, and the reason He helps us and He does things for us is not because He has to. It's because He wants to. And when we're in that hopeless situation, we realize that. If we're turning down people that want to come against us, that want to help us, not against us, want to help us, come to help us, or if we are, trying to do it on our own and it's not working, or we're believing the lie that there is no hope, then we're not giving God the chance to even work. We're not giving Him the chance to do it. And I think you have to get to a certain point within that. There's got to be a certain point on that island where, okay, God, I've burned up the tree. I've done the, I've tried to make a signal. I've used every tool you've given me. Still, nothing's gotten better. Can you, and sometimes God gets us to that point where it's like, okay, I have to just lie down flat on my face and just know that God's going to make it happen. And goes back to the Bible in the Old Testament, where they would, if they were in times of struggle and times of problem, they would rip their clothes and they would lie prostrate on the ground. Meaning they would bend over and put their face as close to the ground as it possibly could get, to be in such a mode of surrender that God can move. And God's going to move one way or the other. Like you said, if He stays on the island and it never fixes itself, there's still a blessing behind what God's going to do, because you've done what God asked you to. You've having a faith in it. I think we've turned God is in control into a cliche. When we say that to people, and I have a friend right now who's
Right,
going
and
through.
that's definitely not what you say to someone who is struggling right now. Like,
Exactly.
as in, like, you don't, someone's kid just died. You don't tell them, God is in control. It's like, well, then I don't like God right now.
Do you mean tell you what that translates to me? And I thought about this today. I was actually talking to a friend about this earlier today. When you say God is in control or God has a plan to somebody who's going through a struggle. Now, in normal life, it's fine, but if you use it that cliche, that's almost like saying, thank God it's not me. I mean, really, it's almost a selfish thought when you tell people that, because you can't fathom what they're going through and don't know how they process it. Now, is it wrong to say that? No, it's okay to say that in situations of like in the right situation. But again, I have a friend going through cancer right now. He's got he's got a 6-year-old son, his wife, and he's only 43. He's young. Cancer is real in his body at this moment, and God can still heal him. We always say that, and we always believe that. That's a faith prayer. But if I walked up to her and I said, God's got everything in control, and if I said, I understand what you're going through, it's hard, no, things like that. It's almost like saying it's not a sincere thought. It's almost like a cliche that we say just to make things happen. To show him God's going to be the one to show him he's in control. I mean, are you catching on a train here, or am I going down a rabbit hole?
I get the it's a cliche thing. It's like, that's probably when someone is going like in the moment,
Yeah.
I think mostly what we've been talking about with the hopelessness is like the slow burn kind.
Yeah.
Where like with COVID, being like feeling isolated and stuff, like this slow burn, not in the moment, the crap has hit the fan. I'm not sure if I can make it out of this. It's like, you'll be fine. God's in control. Like that's not what they need to hear. What they need to hear is that someone is there.
Exactly.
And that's part of breaking out of the isolation. That's part of people being there.
Well, and that goes back to the island thing again, where you have the tree. Let's say there is a tree. Let's say there are supplies on the island to make things that God's allowed you to have things to help you through this in the slow process of it. Because like I said, maybe you burn the tree down and nothing comes. Maybe you have to go through this process or that process. And it's a slow burn. But the hopelessness can seem a lot longer. And a lot of us, I think in our minds, we the longer we sit in something, the worse it gets in our minds and the bigger it gets.
Right, mulling over stuff.
And so that makes the burn even slower, because it's like, okay, yesterday wasn't a good day. We're still stuck at home. We'll use COVID. We got to be stuck at home tomorrow. We got to wear a mask. We've got to this. And it's a slow, like, picking at it. And, the enemy uses that too, I think. He can get you in one fell swoop, or he can slowly just pick at you and pick at the right parts. And that goes to, what chink in your armor is, right? So the enemy's always, that's the funny thing when we hear about that, and when I preached it before, it's like the enemy is constantly firing arrows at you. Some of them are deflected from your armor, some of them are, and there's always, so he's constantly chipping away, trying to find the right thing. I think that's how I kind of see the enemy working. He's trying every avenue he possibly can to get that feeling out of you. And so it's exhaustive to him, but also exhaustive to you, because it may not hurt you all the way, and it may take you to this point and that point. But things like right now with people stuck at home, we want connection, because there are people at home right now who probably, like I said, they do feel hopeless, and Christmas is coming. You shouldn't feel hopeless towards Christmas. So and yet, things are being canceled. So I think one of the things, even from a parent perspective, social things are being canceled. Halloween's canceled. And not that Halloween's a thing, but trick-or-treating. Trick-or-treating, but the reason we say that as a joke, we made someone in our neighborhood made a joke on their on our webpage that said, on our Facebook in our neighborhood, that said, we're going to protest trick-or-treating. We're going to dress our kids up on October 31st in costumes, and we're going to walk door to door and knock on doors and protest. So ultimately they're trick-or-treating. They're just joking around with it. But what I'm saying is that you see a lot of sarcasm come out of this. You see a lot of things that are happening. And the problem, too, is that social media, and the more you hear people gripe about it, the more it exacerbates things in your head, because you don't think things are getting better. And yet, yes, we are in this time of COVID. Yes, we are in a time of isolation, and a lot of people are home and they're not leaving. And God is in control, and it's hard to see that. So one of the things that we're doing here, like I said, is trying to find avenues to make connection through video, through other things. But the best way to make connection is to, call somebody, but to look at God's word and see what His promises are. I mean, we're going to get through COVID.
Yeah.
When? We don't know.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass. And things, and the neat thing is you usually look back on it and realize, God, I saw you in that moment. That's the one hope I get to through adversity. One of the ways I cope with it, besides praying that God, knowing God's going to do it, is that when I do come through adversity, slow adversity or fast adversity, as I come out of it, I'm able to look back on what happened and realize, wait a minute, God, you were right there. You were right there. You were right there. And you kind of wish you could have seen it while it was happening. But again, we're humans, we're stubborn. We don't see it.
Right, and And to basically sum all of this up, it's, to cope with hopelessness, you know that God's got it.
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't, because it doesn't always get better. Sometimes, it just doesn't get better. And even if it doesn't get better, knowing that, you can still see God in your life. When you see all of that happening, knowing that God is powerful enough to fix it if it is His will, and all of that. Knowing that God is in control helps you to be able to glorify Him, even in the hardship.
And I'll tell you the one story of the Bible that sticks out the most in that hardship is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. If you read the scripture, and this will help out with hopelessness. This is one of the big things that really kind of helped me in situations too. The furnace is 7 times hotter. They're being thrown in. The 2 men burn up, and everything else. And, I mean,
throwing Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego into the furnace.
Yeah. So throwing them into the furnace. So if you want to talk about a hopeless situation, I mean, abandon all hope, ye who enter into this furnace.
Because with Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, they had faith in God. They knew God was in control, and they were like, even if He doesn't,
we're still not going to do it.
We're still holding on to Him, not you. And that's something that we can really apply to now, because even if things don't get better, we can still know that our God is the most powerful one.
And that's what I was getting to. Yeah, that line right there has helped me through a lot of things too. I've asked God, God, through adversity in my life. Last year, at this point in time, about a week ago, I almost died from a surgical complication. You know about it. And this is a year. Like, last week was my first surgery. That was okay. I was supposed to go okay. Didn't go okay for an umbilical hernia. So then I went back 2 weeks later, and if I'd waited one more day, I could have been dead, basically. God worked it out. But, I had to come to that kind of thing too when I was going to surgery. It's like, God, I could really die. This could happen. But even if you don't save me, I still love you no matter what.
Right.
Even if He does not, and it's not just it's not that God's not saving you. Everything that God does works out for the good, right? Mm-hmm. But that's the funny thing too on that, and I know we need to expand on it another time. Just because God thinks it's good, it's the best for us. It's good, but we think of good in other terms. When we think of good, we think of great, wonderful, everything. Good to God is really the best situation. Does that make sense? Is that kind of good is not like sunshine and rainbows.
Good is growth.
Good is growth. That's the best way to say it. And good is coming out of something. So when you're in adversity and knowing that God's all things work out to good.
It's not like God is like, yes, what I want is for you to suffer. It's what I want is for you to grow closer to me when you suffer, and that ties into the coping with hopelessness, knowing that He is in control.
So I would say, to finish that up, how I deal with Hopelessness. Now I say hopelessness. How I deal with coping with hopelessness is relying on faith that God is in control by reading His Word and actually taking what He says, not from a I deserve it mentality, but from a God, you love me enough to give me this mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So
right. With that, what do you mind praying us out?
Sure. Father God, we thank you right now for everything you've done today, Lord. Help us to realize that no man is an island. God, that you give us the tools to help us cope through hopelessness. Lord, let us be able to see it on the horizon. Lord, help us to be able to grow out of it. When we come out on the other end of hopelessness, when we come out on the other end of the things in our lives, that there is growth. There is a new sense of being in you, and it actually grows us deeper in you because we learn to trust you in faith more. God, help us right now. Help the ones out there right now who are having a hard time with COVID right now, with the hopelessness of being by themselves, the feeling of isolation, and let them know that they're not alone. Let them know that we're all sharing in this experience, and God, we're all praying for each other. And Lord, help us to be able to realize the help when it comes along, to be able to cope with everything that's going on in our lives. I thank you for Ethan and this podcast. I thank you for being able to be on it, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen.